Welcome to the warm-up presented by Ford. I'm Stephanie Reddy here tonight with NBA champion Steve Smith, in case you didn't recognize him with the glasses on, and number one pick MVP and WNBA champion, Candace Parker. Let's get to it.
Let's go.
We have so much in store for you guys this
I'm not
evening.
putting them yellow frames on my face.
These two.
1970s.
9 games in the NBA this evening. One right here on the NBA TV's airwaves. Starting off with this look, Paul George. Remember him? Well, he's been spectacular. First 2 games, he's averaging 35 points in only 22 minutes of play, shooting well over 50% from behind the arc. Speaking of shooting a lot, James Harden, the Beard, is going to lead his team to what they hope will be their 8th straight victory right here on NBA TV.
How many field goals he's shooting? All the shots.
All of them.
He should. Keep shooting, James. You're doing your thing.
All of them.
Well, here's a closer look. Last 7 games, they happen to all be victories for the Houston Rockets. Look what he's doing, you guys. These are not typos. 43 points, 45% from the field, 41% from behind the arc. And those last 3 numbers, nobody really looks at these when you talk about James Harden and his production, but 8 assists, 7 boards, over 2 steals. Impressions?
He's been remarkable. I mean, for me to see a player take on that much, the endurance he has to put in. I mean, he's shooting close to 26 shots, close to, I think, 15 free throws, and his three-point numbers are up. And he's basically taking on 1 on 5, and they're still winning. One thing is, if you shoot a lot and score a lot, people say a lot, but he's still winning, Candace. That's what I love about it.
And I will say, I love this for the regular season,
Yes.
Smitty.
Yes.
For the regular season, he is unstoppable. And last year, he was my pick for MVP, just in the sense of the fact that his team was 10th in the West last year, with everybody hurt. Eric Gordon was hurt, Chris Paul was hurt, Clint Capella was hurt, and James Harden stepped up.
Tony was hurt.
Yeah.
No, I'm just playing.
And everybody stepped up.
Yes.
Or he stepped up and made everybody around him better. And they won with him shooting this volume of shots. Those are volume of shots. Excuse me, I can't speak today, Smitty. But I will say his usage rate is high. And that's the thing that I worry about with regular season, yes, regular season MVP. But he wants to win a championship. And so, I think they're going to have to figure out a different way to do that because ISOs aren't as high in the playoffs.
So where does this rank for you all? I mean, it seems like every single NBA season we keep seeing a historic run, right? Westbrook with averaging a triple-double, Harden with his scoring prowess. Where does this rank with you guys? I know it's early in the season, but he's been pretty spectacular so far.
Well, to me, I think, sometimes you look at the assists, but it's when you get assists, and they have so much usage rate. I just think, for me, Candace, both those guys, I would love to even see James Harden playing more out of the post sometime, just because he can see double teams. And I love if they double James, which you probably will. Ball is swung to Russell Westbrook, then he's attacked. I would just love to see them in the playoffs, like Candace say, change up the style. And then also for me is everything should be defense. All their talk should be defense. One thing they've done in this 7-game win streak, they've holding opponents on 103 points. That's what I want to see. And they have the capability with these guys, with these athleticism, and should be high basketball IQ to defend.
Well, I agree with you because there's not many people that are going to stop them in transition. And so if you are able to get defensive stops, then they're going to score on the other end with the amount of shots they're getting up. But my thing is Russell Westbrook was injured last year, and he did not shoot the ball well. Yeah. I do believe that these numbers are more of a representation of who Russell Westbrook is. I mean, shooting 43% for him, I think it's great. But I also think D'Antoni is going to have to balance the amount of games that they play and the amount of minutes that they play together so they can get used to playing with each other in the playoffs.
So we showed Westbrook there. Everyone knows what he's capable of. We know that he plays with such fierce, almost recklessness, right? What can we expect from the two of them together? I mean, we all know defense is a necessity. With their athleticism, shouldn't they be a better defensive team?
They should. And I think that both those guys got to lead the pack. And then they have Clint Capella as a guy who can play pick and rolls. Candace, he can switch on pick and rolls. He can protect at the rim. So you have those 3 guys. Yeah. And then you throw in P.J. Tucker. They should, with those 4, have a pretty good defensive team, being able to playoffs, to be able to guard some of these top-notch teams, to be able to win. It all has to be defense for me. All has to be the way they play the game at the end of the game in the playoffs.
But what a luxury to have. To be able to sometimes, when your defense is not acting the way that it should, to be able to outscore teams. And I think as long as in the regular season, you're honing in on your defensive rotations and you're figuring it out. In the playoffs, if you can outscore people, I mean, we saw with Golden State last year, it's an advantage to have because this is a scoring league.
All right, so we have to mention this because we're talking about the Rockets and who they're playing. Let's talk a little bit about the Portland Trail Blazers and someone who may not be eligible to play tonight yet, but Carmelo Anthony will be joining the fray.
Finally.
Glad he's back.
Man.
We're all excited that he's back.
I'm excited.
So what is he going to bring to the table? I know it's hard to speculate because we have not seen him out on the court.
Candace, you know, everybody goes, you know, Carmelo is a ball stopper. Carmelo, isolation. Well, I'm watching pretty much every superstar is a ball stopper, isolation. I think for him I think actually CJ and Dame need somebody else to draw some double teams. I don't know if Carmelo can do it at the clip he did it 3 or 4 years ago, but I think at times he can get 13, 15, and in some nights 20 points. But just having him out there gives them another threat to keep the defense not loaded up on them.
Well, when the Houston Rockets were struggling last year, Carmelo had a stretch of games where he was scoring 20, where he was putting up numbers and actually shooting the ball at a pretty good rate. And my thing, Portland is struggling right now. They are not doing well. I think they're 11th in the West. They're on a 6-game road trip. They're going to be playing on the road, and they're struggling. And so I think it's a part now where they both need each other. I think this is going to be a win-win situation. Melo is going to be able to operate at the elbow. They are second in volume isolations, and so that's perfect for Melo. But they definitely are going to have to start creating for each other.
Yep.
And Dame has to draw and be able to dish to somebody with confidence that can knock down the shot.
That's a good point. Portland starting out 5-8, a little disappointing compared to where they ended the season last year. And you look at Dame and CJ together, we know that they are a high-scoring backcourt. I think you guys bring up a good point with Carmelo. Because we know what he can do, I feel like his pedigree allows him to be able to fit into whatever piece they need him to be. He is an all-star. He is an all-NBA caliber player when he was at his peak. Why wouldn't he be able to come in and just give them whatever that is? If it's off the elbow, if it's someone who can post up more to bring some attention to the defense.
You know, I like him at the 4 a lot with this unit. You know, having him, Rodney Hood, and also Whiteside, that gives them some spacing. You know, both Hood and Carmelo can stand at the line, a high pick and roll with Whiteside. You got to collapse, and you give Rodney Hood and Carmelo some easy shots. And I think Carmelo's strong enough and big enough. The league is not where it used to be, Kansas. I don't think there's any dominant 4s that just can dominate Carmelo. So I'm going to love to see him at the 4 spot a lot with this group.
Yeah, and I think off the bench, I mean, you look at the pieces that the Blazers have lost just this season to injury and then also just in free agency. How many of their critical pieces have been lost, and a lot of them at that 4 position. And so I think Melo coming off the bench, you know, not starting games, but hopefully finishing a lot of games, will give them an extra score because, I mean, if you can put the ball in the basket, it doesn't matter what's happening on the other end. You can cover that up with team defense.
All right, well, speaking of Carmelo Anthony, he could be making his debut right here on NBA TV. You look ahead Tuesday night, that's tomorrow. Blazers, Pelicans, 8 p.m. Eastern, followed up by Thunder, Lakers at 10:30. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with Game Time on NBA TV. And if by chance Melo does not make his debut then, I have it on good authority that he might make it on Thursday. So either way, you're covered with your Melo watch. Thursday on TNT, Trailblazers, Bucks at 8 p.m. Eastern, Pelicans, Suns, 10:30 Eastern. Coverage starts with the warm-up at 6 p.m. right here on NBA TV. It's my favorite part of the show, guys. Ask the Analyst. It's coming up later in the show tonight. If you have questions, we have answers. Drop your questions for Steve Smith or Candace Parker, and they'll answer it right here on the warm-up on NBA TV.
Where are your glasses, Smitty?
Oh, they didn't want me to take them.
They didn't want you
I got them right here.
Okay.
He's got you covered with all sorts of glasses. Marc Gasol. Did we forget about him? How could you? Plays for the Toronto Raptors. We've got a live report from Toronto coming up on the other side of this break. The warm-up continues. Welcome back to the warm-up presented by Ford. Here's a live look inside Scotiabank Arena. Toronto Raptors hosting the Charlotte Hornets this evening. That's 7:30 p.m. Eastern on NBA League Pass. And we welcome you back inside the studio, and we're excited to welcome in an old friend of mine, Matt Devlin, who covers the Toronto Raptors. Welcome, Matt.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. Great to see you.
Hey, listen, before we get to the serious business, I have to ask, where is your ring? Are you wearing it? Can I see it, or is it hidden away?
It's right here. It's the wedding ring.
Ah, smart
right there.
man. See, that's what I'm talking about. Take notes at home for all you newlyweds. Very well
Exactly.
played, Matt Devlin. All right, let's get to the Toronto Raptors. Pascal Siakam. People are saying that he could possibly win Most Improved Player 2 years in a row. Tell us a little bit about his progress.
Well, he continues to get better, and I think to me the number one thing that stands out is he has a motor, and it's every single day he wants to get better. His game continues to evolve and improve. He handles the basketball even more now than he did a season ago. As we all know, his usage rate is up. He can attack, he can go to the rim. He has a mid-range game, and then also he can step out and shoot the three. Now, he has shot the ball really well in years past from the corners, and now that's going out around the entire arc. And he has that responsibility. And if you look at these last few games, he's been just exceptional, inclusive of tying his career high with 44 points and coming back with a 36-point effort. And I think this past Saturday against Dallas, it's the end of a long trip, 5 games, unfortunately missed some shots that he typically makes. But I'm a huge fan of Pascal, and I've jokingly said, but maybe it's just half jokingly, MIP to MVP instead of a multiple-time Most Improved Player of the Year. He's really putting together just an elite season.
Matt, Kyle Lowry's been out. Talk to me about Fred VanVleet, what he has done for the Toronto Raptors, and his maturation of each year just seems like he's getting better and better.
Well, he certainly is, and, he has a lot of the elements that Kyle Lowry has. He's a great floor leader. He's an extension of the coach, Nick Nurse, has great range. It's something that he worked at during the postseason where he's stepping out and taking deeper threes, and he's just a true leader on the floor, and he's also getting into the paint. And he has a never say die will. The other thing, even with Pascal, they guard, and Fred, like Kyle, can guard in the post, and he'll do everything he can to keep another team from scoring. And so it's a great element. It's why without the players that they've been without, Kyle Lowry, of course, and Patrick McCall and OG Anunoby missing a game, and then Serge Ibaka, this is a team that defends and they compete night in and night out.
I think last year, playing without Kawhi because of load management, a lot of people got to see the depth of, the Toronto Raptors. And this season, obviously on this road trip alone, losing, like you said, Kyle Lowry, Serge Ibaka, OG. Can you talk about the defense? Because I don't think people really realize how sound Toronto is defensively.
Well, they are, and it's a great point. Last season, they went 17-5, and I know that Nick Nurse is somebody that people talk extensively about on the offensive side of the ball, but he can coach both sides of the ball. And even last year, it was defense first, and the elements of that, as we saw throughout the course of the postseason, mixing and matching, bringing in the box and one, the triangle and two, that is something that has been talked about before. It's something that we saw within this past week, whether it be against Damian Lillard or whether it was against Kawhi Leonard or LeBron James, multiple defenders, the zone, switching back to man-to-man. And then also they're number one in the NBA in fast break points. And as we all know, where do you get those from? You get that from your D. And early on in the season, when asked about maybe some players getting into the rotation, what do they have to do? Nick Nurse said, know the defensive schemes and play defense. And so that's something that you can provide on a night-to-night basis. It's something that is happening. Rondae Hollis-Jefferson was great over the past week. And this is a team that's lost a lot of depth. Remember, Jakob Poeltl, who is a bench player, was in the Kawhi Leonard deal with DeMar. Then when you think about the Marc Gasol deal, Jonas Valanciunas was involved in that deal, along with C.J. Miles and DeLon Wright. And then you had the graduation of Pascal last season into the starting lineup. Fred VanVleet this season, along with OG Anunoby. And the scouts do an amazing job. They've brought in players like Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, Terrence Davis, Matt Thomas, who spent the last 3 years in Europe. And this is a team that has that next man up mentality, and it's carried through.
Well, it certainly is evident, Matt, when you list all of those people that have been in and out of the lineup, and especially when you consider top 5 defensive rating both last year and this year. It brings me to what Candace brought up with the injuries. Can you give us an update? Where do you all stand in terms of when the bodies are coming back?
Well, with respect to Kyle Lowry, originally 2 weeks and then reevaluated, so we're roughly about 5-6 days from that. Serge Ibaka, high ankle sprain. As you three know, as former players, that can linger. There has not been an update on that. You hope, obviously, to get him back sooner rather than later. And then there's no timeline on Patrick McCall, unfortunately.
Wow, that just makes it that much more impressive. Matt Devlin, we appreciate you joining us. You're always welcome here on the warm-up.
Thank you so much. Have a great evening.
All right, he laid it out. I mean, there's a lot of bodies in and out of the Toronto lineup, and they're still finding success. In fact, they're undefeated at home with a 4-0 record. What do you all attribute that to?
I think defense. I think championship, the way you go about approaching games. I think they learned that last year. Candace hit it best. During load management, they were basically guys had to step up into a different role. And now Pascal Siakam is taking on this role of a Kawhi Leonard. Not saying he's Kawhi, but I'm looking who's going to be the next Pascal Siakam, whether that's OG Anunoby or someone else. But I think this team right now, if you defend and also you shoot well from the three-point line, you'll have a chance. And if you just want to compete and play the right way, they've done a nice job.
Well, I think they're taking the recipe from the Spurs. The Spurs beat teams that they are supposed to beat. And the Toronto Raptors have not lost consecutive games all season. And so learning from your mistakes, I think shooting the leather off the ball has helped. They're shooting 40% from beyond the arc, 40% from the three-point line. And again, you talk about defense. What does that do? That gives you easy offense in the transition side of the game. And that's exactly what they did to the Lakers. They outscored them in transition. And, you know, when you have athletes like Van Fleet and you have athletes like Siakam coming at you and your defense is not set, it's going to be really tough to stop them one-on-one.
Well, we'll find out what happens. This is why we love this game every single night. You never know what you're going to get. The warm-up is going to take a quick break. We'll continue after these messages. Here's a look at Miles Turner of the Indiana Pacers. Remember, he missed 8 games? Well, he's back.